Hello, I'm Katie Manning, and you're very lucky because you're listening to Gallifrey Public Radio. Enjoy!
This is Gallifrey Public Radio, dedicated to positive enjoyment of Doctor Who. We travel through classic and new episodes, explore the extended universe, and play a few games from time to time. We do discuss news, content that has been officially released, and the occasional interesting rumor, but we'll warn you before anything considered spoilers comes up.
Welcome to episode 524 of Gallifrey Public Radio. I'm Haley.
I'm Jay.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Kier. Today, the Doctor and Ruby head to the early 19th century in Rogue, expecting a posh event, but finding a nest of criminal shapeshifters and one rather low-key but charismatic bounty hunter.
This isn't the way to die. And you knew. You didn't even flinch.
Because it's obvious. This is a murder far beyond the technology of planet Earth. It could only be done by someone brilliant.
And monstrous.
And ruthless.
Contemptible.
You. No, you.
Excuse me,
You.
Well, we've been talking about having the Doctor Light adventures and wanting one that's Doctor focused, and man, did this one deliver.
Couldn't be
Indeed.
more focused.
So one of
Yes, we got all the ranges of the Doctor in this.
and one of the things we always talk about is like good entry points for new people to watch Doctor Who. I actually showed this to somebody as the first episode of Doctor Who that they had ever seen, and they loved it.
Okay.
So
Did you have to do any walk-in explanation of anything, or you just?
I would say
turned it on
they
and let it
like had the vague concept of what Doctor Who is, but he also tells you in this episode who he is and where he's from. So
go? Right.
I don't
In
even know that
defense
you
of
have
his
to do
life,
that.
yes.
So any Bridgerton fans in your lives that you're trying to get them into Doctor Who, show them this episode.
Right.
And I mean, it comes complete with the TARDIS reveal.
Does have the TARDIS reveal. Yeah.
Yeah, you also get that the Doctor's not human, he's otherworldly, he's one of a kind. You don't necessarily get any of the, for lack of a better way to put it, like the medical analysis of two hearts or anything like that, but you don't need it for this story.
Now, this gives you just enough to get going. So yeah, I think that this is a good one.
Also, lots of really cool music, too, for the music fans in your life.
It's true.
Which is
Julie, you
also,
picked up on that.
Yeah, something very Bridgerton, because they take pop songs and make them orchestral pieces that fit into dance numbers that couldn't play like this. And so hearing it, and I knew I recognized the first song that we get at the beginning when the Doctor walks up to the place where
Duchess?
Rogue is. No, when he walks up
When
to
the
where
Doctor
Rogue
first meets
is,
Rogue.
Upstairs. It's bad guy.
Yep. Which
And
I didn't
I
recognize,
was like,
but the person I was with shouted it in my ear, so...
Yeah, my daughter like said it almost instantaneously. I was like, how? How did you pick up on that?
Yeah, the first time through, I kind of was like, oh, I know what that is, but and then watching it through a second time with the subtitles, and this very, very Bridgerton does that as well. It'll say the whatever orchestra playing it this way. So both things, the style, the visuals, as well as some of those musical undertones, is very neat to see.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, very easy to draw someone in if they're a fan of anything remotely sci-fi and have that Bridgerton interest.
Right. That's becoming very popular across a lot of properties right now. I mean, we saw it was Westworld, or Ramin Djawadi was doing that quite a bit, and it's happened, gosh, all the way back. I'm trying to think of the first example of where that came from, and I think it might have been A Knight's Tale.
That's, I believe, yeah, the first like really popular way of making it be integrated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, A Knight's Tale was pretty much just the song, right? It wasn't a different take on it, but
it was the utilization of it set against a sort of an anachronistic setting.
Yeah.
So,
and that was one of the things we talked about when when we had Jess on talking about this was one of the things that I really wanted to see was Murray Gold doing this kind of thing with like taking some pop music, making it his own, and throwing it in the story.
Yeah, definitely well delivered. And I think it sets the scene for what this episode was. Very bright with that undertone of something's going on here.
I think a lot of these little bits, and I know we're just starting to dip our toes into this, but all of these little aspects of how this story comes together, maybe, I don't know, maybe it was in the script. Maybe it was actually something where our two writers actually called for this, but all of these little elements that make this story kind of pop the way it does and feel like, okay, we came out of some rather dark stories for a little while. We needed something that kind of lifted up a bit. And this one it's bright. It feels very, very Tennant, it's even at times a little bit more high contrast than Girl in the Fireplace was, which was a very similar kind of tone, but this seems a little bit more amplified. But it even to me has a lot of classic story elements to it. The idea of like when the Doctor and Rogue are walking through the arbor and, the Doctor keeps getting hit in the face by, hanging lilacs and whatnot. And says and there's that weird left turn about the shoe. There's like, okay, that's a very Fourth Doctor kind of thing. Be in the middle of a conversation, all of a sudden a clue pops in front of you, and the conversation totally detours. And that, to me, said, we've got fresh writers in the room. And these are writers who want to have some fun with this property, but do some things that are very them with it. And I think they have.
You get that moment on the TARDIS as well when they're about to kiss and then something happens, and it helps to make the ending that much more important. But you don't, I say this a lot when we talk about this, but you don't earn that if you haven't set up that is how the writing is going to be, where you have that moment with the shoe first and you have them having the banter back and forth of, it's you. No, seriously, it's you. And saying it at the same time, and then allowing for them to have that chemistry in the writing and clearly on scene and together. But if without that, it falls very flat. And I feel like you don't get the emotion of what's going on in those moments if you haven't written that in and really earned it.
We got some interesting guest stars in this one. We knew Jonathan Groff was going to be one of the main side characters that we got to meet. But there was a familiar face in the Duchess. Did anybody else pick up on that one?
Yes. I had to double check because I was like, that looks like Indira Varma. But would they use her again? I haven't seen her in a while, so I wasn't 100% sure. But yep, that's her.
Yeah. She's not a verboten or anything. She can absolutely be utilized. And she was so entertaining in this.
Oh, she was. She's was
perfect
loving
for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think she did not love the costume. However, I saw an interview where she's like, it took forever to get on and off and it was itchy.
Oh, yeah. Like fuzzy feathers. Blech.
Yeah.
And it was all over.
Right. For her to play that role, I think is perfect because she's got that very expressive face that even when she's covered in an owlbear face, you still have the emotion coming through from her facial features and just her ability to like lay it on thick and then also pull back and screech.
Mm-hmm. Definitely got to see that she hasn't in her previous outings within Doctor Who and Torchwood and things like that, hadn't really had much of an opportunity to work comedic chops, but she's solid.
Yeah.
I feel like she's done so much other work I know for Netflix and other BBC shows that I feel like it's potentially another draw for grounding this in the BBC more than with Disney.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of funny when we were talking about this last week because, Kier, you had made the offhanded joke that they were coming for cosplayers this week. And that's exactly what it turned out to be. And
oh, dag, I did. Oh, Dip. I'm an oracle.
I didn't know I was telling the future.
I remember sitting there, and as soon as he said they're cosplayers, I was like, oh, no.
Wow.
The thing that got me, though, was like when the doctor said it, I was fine with it. I'm like, no, it makes sense. He knows what cosplayers are. That would like that's something he would. But when the aliens said it, that really kind of pulled me out. I'm like,
yeah,
the only one that should have said it was the Emily one because she heard him say the word and she was picking up words. But that any of the others would use it did throw me a little, especially how they used it.
I wonder if there was a moment at which the Duchess was there when the doctor said it and then that got cut or moved in some way.
This is the same way that I justified the fact that they were making the Bridgerton reference so many times because first couple times I get it. It happened with.
Well, they only did it twice.
They used the word Bridgerton 4 times in this episode.
I thought it was twice. Once with the dance and then once when she's in the library spying on them.
No.
Ruby said it twice.
Yeah.
But the doctor also said it twice.
And one of the children said it once.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
So, but then I had to remind, because that was what was sticking with me, Jay. Is like, okay, I get it. This is, it feels very Bridgerton. I get it, but you don't have to keep reminding me. And then I thought, well, no, there was the whole point about the doctor saying that the transmissions are being beamed into space. They've been watching this show and they're emulating it. So if they're watching this, they may be getting other broadcasts. They probably know a lot of the vernacular. They probably know what cosplayers are from seeing other things. This is the one that they're currently invested in. And I think Emily was just playing stupid for the sake of fleecing Ruby.
Then I want it to be like, we're going to cosplay master this or something. Like make it be the title of a show that maybe doesn't exist specifically, but let it be that then.
Yeah. I mean, if you have to go that deep into explaining why they know the word, it's really not worth it to have it in there. They easily could have called it something else, said something else, altered the line in some way. But
yeah.
They could have stuck with the D&D reference that we're going to mimic this planet to death.
There we go. Yeah, lean harder into the D&D, please.
Yeah. It was just barely there.
And he had dice.
And really, what kind of D&D player only has one set of matching dice? Come on.
He only had one out.
Really?
Right. Yeah. One out for having no one to travel with. It's his one sad set. The rest of the ship is filled with them. We just didn't see that part.
Yeah, if you're only going to have one set, it's going to be fancy as hell.
Yeah. Well, those are the ones he just leaves out on the console.
The ones he fiddles with when he's flying the ship.
I just haven't put them away yet.
Well, yeah, I think the person that he traveled with previously was someone that he played with. And I think that's where the name came from and where some of his backstory. And I do wonder, is he human? Is that where this comes from? Or is he something else and also has picked up that part of human culture because of having to research it for what he's doing? But wrapping all of that into the idea of why is he traveling alone and how that plays into the end, I think that he had to sacrifice his partner who flew the ship with him. And that's why he was able to then sacrifice himself. Like he knows what the doctor can't do because he already did that. So did anyone else feel that way? Or do you feel like it was some other way that he lost his traveling companion? Lowercase c.
I don't know that he had to make the sacrifice, but he knows what it is to have that loss, and he doesn't want the doctor to have to go through it, to be the one to have to make that choice.
Right, because they had the conversation about Rogue asking back, who have you lost? And the doctor responded, everyone. So that's a matter of saying, all right, you've been through enough. And if there's something that I can do that can save you one more stab in the heart, And there's a possibility, because everything that he's just seen from his eye-opening experience within the TARDIS and things like that, there is a possibility that if anyone can find him, it could potentially be the Doctor. So it's not a total suicide mission necessarily, but he is sending himself to a barren dimension with 5 angry children that are much stronger than he is.
Presumably he has a gun still on him. I don't think that he would have dropped that. So maybe he'll make it. To that point, I wondered, there was a one-liner about there's so much paperwork since we got that new boss. Is his new boss everyone else's boss? And will we maybe see him again because he's valuable and somebody who doesn't abide by the same laws of space and time can pluck him out of where he's been sent and bring him back in a different context?
Is that boss Kate?
Or is that boss Kate? Yeah.
Was this a little clever wink at the camera from the writers being like, ever since we got this new boss, wink, wink, mouse ears, that, there's so much more paperwork.
There's a lot of new bosses. I don't think that was necessarily a connection to The One Who Waits or any of those larger mysteries. I think it's just a nice way of sort of rounding out the scene, saying, this paperwork, right? Ever since this new boss came in, it was work all the time.
You've got to fill that space somehow. So
yeah.
One of the things that I really appreciated about this episode was Ruby, because the scenes where she was the focus, she was really fantastic. And the scenes where she wasn't, again, just living in that space, being, giving exactly what she needed to make the scene work without overpowering it. You think about when she is trapped, stuck in the trap, and Rogue is like, you have to do this, Doctor. And she's just kind of reaffirming, like, no, it's fine. Go for it. Not overpowering the scene, not anything like that, but just enough to, that's what Ruby would do. And then we got you could see how quickly things turned for the Doctor when he thought Ruby was gone.
Both times.
Like, I can't let you kill these things. But then the minute that he thinks that they did something to Ruby, it's like, oh, good. I want them to suffer for centuries.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that line. I did not think that within this first season that we would get to see hints of what a dark 15 could be.
Mm-hmm.
It's freaking terrifying.
Right.
Because it's cold. It's not rageful. It's not petulant. It's surgical.
When the highs are that high, the lows are even lower.
Yeah.
And that makes me wonder too if the Doctor really understands what it would take to keep Ruby safe. And I think that's why this episode had to be placed here, because I think now the Doctor's going to realize she's so precious, she has a part to play, but she can't be with me anymore. And in trying to leave her behind or give her back or whatever that might be is what triggers our next 2 episodes and the story of who Ruby is. And it's him thinking about that conversation with her mom at that moment and saying, I will do everything I can to keep her safe, and has failed over and over.
Right. And that's just the point. Putting that in there and seeing, just based on costume at the time, okay, this was one of their early conversations going back to either it was 2 days or 6 months. We're not really sure. But that stark reminder in the midst of a situation where it allows the viewer to look back and say, yeah, Ruby has either been near death or actually dead for moments in the last few episodes. Okay. Doc's not batting very well at the plate right now. And that realization needs to kick in.
It's also interesting that this Doctor would make that promise after everything every version of the Doctor has been through with the companions. Even Jodie's doctor specifically saying at the beginning of her run with her new fam, I can't promise that I'll be able to keep you safe. Like, acknowledging that what they're doing is dangerous and she'll do everything she can, but she can't keep them safe. that Shooty's doctor would then promise her mother, I will keep her safe.
But he had
seems
just
like
bi-generated. All things are possible.
It seems like a wild promise to make at this point in his life.
It kind of came forward that he is, in many senses, a reckless optimist.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of gaffe that you'll make in either, and it's not necessarily a matter of ego or anything along that line. It's just a matter of a set of blinders, in a sense, that come on as a result of that brimming hope that, this time around, we're not going to be taking the dangerous chances. We're going to go and we're going to have some adventures. We're going to see things. We're not going to intervene with things. And in none of these encounters or adventures that we've had up to this point was the Doctor ever actually seeking out anything. They just occurred, which I understand is the MO of a large percentage of the show. But we haven't had something where the Doctor said, I've found something that I need to step into, and you can either come along with me or not. But I think back to, what was it, when they're on the war-torn planet, and it sounded like somebody screaming out there. I think I'm just going to go investigate.
He said stay in the TARDIS, but he knows full well Ruby's not going to do that.
The companions never stay in the TARDIS.
Right.
Never.
The one time they did, it was Tegan and somebody,
Nissa?
And no.
Or was it Tegan and Adric at that point?
No. The other guy.
Turlo.
Yeah, it was Tegan and Turlo. And they're both sitting in there like, should we fly the TARDIS there? Do we stay here? No, we'll stay here. And it's like that whole just giving them an alternate position. But yeah, it's the one time I think that's ever happened.
Meanwhile, back in the TARDIS, these two are still yapping.
Right. And I think, though, that's what makes me think part of this interaction between Rogue and the Doctor at the very end is Rogue recognizing that how far he's fallen is because of what that moment of losing someone that the Doctor has promised, like my best friend. And obviously he can't see into that story, but we as viewers see all these pieces together. So having that be, to your point, Kier, of the blinders, where immediately after falling quickly into some kind of love with Rogue, immediately flipping that switch back off again and being like, all right, this is what I do. I willfully choose to ignore and tamp down everything I just felt in the last overnight so that I can continue and carry on. I think the Doctor would not have been able to do that with Ruby's loss, even though that's how we cope with things when bad stuff happens, is pretend it's fine and just keep going what's next. But you don't get that.
I love the fact that in that moment when the Doctor was doing that, saying like, okay, nope, we're just going to carry on. Ruby, even though she almost just got bamfed off to a different dimension, like you could see she was preparing for what was coming. She still recognized like, no, you need to feel this, but I'm here for you, and like stopped him and grabbed him and like made sure that he had a moment and felt comforted. I love the fact that she took that moment to do that. And then she was like, held him at arm's length, looked at him, said, okay, we're good. And then just walks off to the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Kobe called that one out as the scene's ending, and she just spins on her heel and and walks off, 45 degrees off the frame. Jacob looks up and goes, where's she going? It felt kind of abrupt. She's
There's
going
a
to the
shed
TARDIS,
over
buddy.
there.
Yeah,
she figured it out. She did the tippy toe hug, hold him, make him realize. Then they did
the tippy toe hug, because holy crap, she's so short. She's
tippy toe
hanging
hug
from his shoulders.
Heavy moment, like forcing the energy level to settle, and then a legit real hug moment, and then okay, now you can handle this on your own. You've calmed, like you've lost that edge. Figure out what's next, and that leaves the Doctor room to look at the ring, feel it for himself, and then walk off on his own. Mm-hmm. Leaving technology in the middle of a dance floor in the 1800s.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Let's just assume that they went back and cleaned up the room later. Maybe.
Yeah.
No, he flipped the butterfly effect thing back on the TARDIS, so it should be fine.
You mean the shed?
Yes, the time shed.
The time shed.
It's the next generation of our podcast. It's just called Time Shed. To that point about Millie Gibson's performances and stuff, I have to say that there was about a 6-minute period where Ruby and Emily are kind of running about, and Emily's like trying to grasp, well, as far as we as the viewers were cognizant of at the time, was trying to gather this information from Ruby, and Ruby's trying to break it down in terms as best she can, but she's not trying to sugarcoat things too much. She's just a little concerned about maybe getting ahead of history and the whole tarmac incident of 1903 or whatever it might have been. And it felt for a moment like Ruby was getting an opportunity to feel what it was like to be the Doctor, to be the one with all of the future knowledge, to be the one in control of how much I'm going to dole out to you, or how I'm going to frame this so that your unprepared mind can absorb it. And I don't want to shut you down. So dealing with Emily in that way was really, I think it must have been a conscious decision on the part of the writers, and I'd love to find out more from them if they get a chance to do some explanations of their thought processes in assembling scenes like this.
Well, and we're finally getting like the graduation of Ruby into an experienced companion, because, you know, she's been doing this for a while now, you know, some number of months maybe. And this is the first time we really see her left alone with somebody from the past. Because the only other episode that was set in the past is the Beatles episode, and she wasn't really alone with anybody else. She was running around with the Doctor pretty much the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And she says at some point, more towards the end, like, you've heard enough. I can tell you who I am. I'm not from this time. And I think that's her making the choice of, even if this person doesn't really remember it or believe it truly, it's going to help with stymieing whatever hysteria is about to happen, and then figure out what's next, because this moment, it's more than what she can imagine. And to your point though, Kier, I think it's a little weird that she has figured out some of it, but she's still using all of her own language. So I really enjoyed that they called that out and said, okay, yeah, and some of that kind of stuff, where looking back, it's because it was an alien creature trying to pretend they didn't know. And now, but it also kind of makes sense of someone from that era who's actually paying attention to what's going on and hearing these words that don't exist in that time.
Yeah. I think in all honesty, the Emily children was one of the most intelligent ones of the bunch.
Yeah.
Even before you come to the realization that she was playing this kind of an innocent sort of playing the ingenue for the better part of the story. But I'm sorry.
I think she was always meant to be the one to figure out the way to coerce them into the marriage. Granted, I still don't know. They seemed to be able to identify each other, but only after they actually thought about it and sniffed each other. They had a higher sense of smell, but they weren't using it properly, because multiple times they would enter each other's presence and then say, oh, I should have realized it's you. I sniffed you now. Like that kind of chaotic.
They can't smell as good through the human nose.
I guess, something like that.
But then you also have the aspect of they're cosplaying, so they're trying to be in character. So even if they're the only ones around, it's like, hey, let's play this scene out because that's why we're here, kind of thing.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't mean you do a neck crick and sniff. But I think that the chaos of a disorganized villain who doesn't know each other, or they have a general plan, but also every curveball, they're like following this wacky route to get somewhat the thing that they really wanted, and then it keeps shifting, and they're like, I want that. That was really fun to let them kind of draw that out and explore how they could be such a curveball for the Doctor and for Rogue, and where they were coming from.
Because I think if you're going to have narcissistic, egomaniacal, opportunity-grabbing criminals, it has to be shapeshifters. just the way it works.
Yeah. Well, it's how you can keep the same actors, so you know what's going, like you have that through line from a logistical standpoint, and you still get some really fun. You get to see her casually sipping, holding her fan in the beginning, and then pounding drinks after she's been shapeshifted.
But she reacts to each one. She throws back like 2 or 3, and each one is met with the kind of shiver, which is great. It's a nice diversion from like our Zygon shapeshifters, where it's done for self-preservation and things like that. It's not always nefarious. Well, at least not in modern Who anyway.
Yeah, because let's be honest, if there were shapeshifters, most of them would probably be malevolent.
Because you could.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
You've got such an in.
The one moment, literally, he kills this guy to take his outfit. Mm-hmm. To be a vicar quickly. You could have just could have just called yourself a vicar. Could have grabbed the white collar bit off. No.
Nope. Got to have the right costume.
Kill that guy. Get the right.
Authentic.
But keep my bird head. Like I need
that was
this
my thing. If it's about like the cosplay and like getting your story right, wouldn't he all the way become the vicar?
He's not pretty enough. Would be my guess. Is why. Like if you're gonna shapeshift,
wig.
Keep my bird head looking nice with now I've got the fancy outfit because we're not trying to hide anymore, but I don't want to be that old costume, guy.
The mask is just
terrible. I don't want that old guy looks terrible, and they're all trying to be the nice young hot ones and not
except for the housekeeper,
that old guy.
Well, but there's where you
recognize their mistake. I thought that I would get into some scandal being the housekeeper. Right. I would learn some secrets. This was terrible.
All I do is plead.
Yes.
All right. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't sing Groff's praises in this story, but not just for the role that he took on and things like that, but specifically for the fact that the way it was played and all of the opportunities that were there to go in some sort of a very over the top or caricature kind of presentation of Rogue was all pulled back. It was so under control throughout that it was almost muted, which is so unusual for Who characters, whether they're on the protagonist or the antagonist side of the dial, because this is a show that's all about big personas, big archetypes, big adventures, big risk, big consequences. And to have someone that just kind of comes through and is clearly kind of a wounded character to a certain sort, but that dark and brooding thing that the Doctor picks up on stays throughout. And I specifically look at that and say, who could never do that? John Barrowman. Because you have something that in the underpinnings has a lot of little similarities in what got you to this place. What do you do with it? And here are two very, very different end results. And I gotta say, I like Rogue a lot better.
Even to the point where like the Doctor is asking him to play up a scene, and he just no. All I've got is this one move.
We would have gotten a monologue from John Barrowman.
Oh my God. Ridiculous.
Well, and the thing is like if you are playing opposite Ncuti Gatwa, he has a huge personality, so you can go very big and it's not going to feel out of place. So the choice to go so low key with it really stands out and makes it a much more memorable experience than anything Barrowman could have brought to screen.
Yeah.
To make a terrible anti-pun that doesn't fit either of them, he played a very good straight man.
It's not an anti-pun.
Whatever it is. When you talk about how you have a foil for a character, the perfect foil for the Doctor is someone who is just, like you said, very emotional, brooding, dark, and consistently has that, but also has a bit of hope. And you see that in their willingness to banter back and forth and figure out, do you travel with me or do I travel with you? Who's the who's the one who gives up their cool ship? Can they fly together next to each other? I don't know. That's the kind of thing that they're talking about as they walk around. But if, as you said, Jay, if you don't have a big personality coming from Shooty, you don't get that ground for someone like Groff to play. And he's done dramatic roles before. Sure. He's in I forget, I don't know what it's called, but that killer series that, so he's done the dramas, and he's also done obviously big performance roles. So he's got the range and could have done anything with it. And this was a very smart choice for how to play it.
To that point, Jay, about you could try to go as large as possible and it would still be within the realm of what Shooty has put forth. I think that actually runs a risk. Because if you try to do that and you don't carry it well, then you just look like you're flapping around, making a lot of noise, and it's not as well executed as someone like Gatwa, who can take that and finds those peaks and valleys even within a line of dialogue that somehow works, even though he starts off quiet and it gets really loud and then brings it back down again and ends with a blah. And it's like, how did that work? And how did the sound guy maintain the levels on all that, by the way? But
you said flapping around.
All of that said, I think I personally would be okay if we never saw Rogue again. Like, I think that the story that was told was decent. It was wrapped up well enough. I like the open-ended nature of, when he, just as he's about to go, says, "Come find me," and then he's gone. It's possible we may see him, but I don't feel like I need to finish out that story.
I agree.
There's no episodic way for that return unless he's connected to that overall arc, because the Doctor's never allowed to settle down and just travel with someone like him. We're that's not the show that we're here for. Even when we had River and the Doctor, they had an episode that was thousands of years or however long that was, and we didn't get to be there for it. So you can't allow that to be the thing unless it's webisodes, which I'm totally down for in the future. But yeah, I think, to your point, I think if this is the only time we see him, that's okay. But I would just always want more of it, because I think the adventures would be fun.
I would welcome him back with open arms. I just don't feel like he needs to return. Yeah. It's not a necessity, but I'm all more than excited to see him again.
Except if this whoever Susan Twist is following and watching, then she would bring him out of say it's like the one who waits, or it's some nefarious thing going on. If we see him again, it could be he doesn't remember the Doctor. It's to be a foil in a bad way that reminds the Doctor of things he'll never get to have, even if it's just an image, a face, or something like that.
Speaking of Susan Twist, another episode where she's dead by the time the Doctor gets to the story that has her in it.
But very prominently displayed.
Yes.
And her eyes are following me. It's like that.
I don't know if the Doctor saw the photo, though, or the portrait. Ruby saw it.
No, but Ruby did. Yeah. Ruby did, yes. And I feel like we got scenes from Next, which was a little bit of, like, she's following us. And I wonder how that'll get explained for, no, I've seen her more times than you. Believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That sequence, though, reminds me of something I was thinking of, Jay, when you were talking about Millie's on-screen, in-scene presence when the scene is about her. And I could watch a number of times that little 2-minute sequence where she's standing there, she has a couple of quick words with the Duchess about the portrait, then she sees something happening as two characters kind of spill out of the room, and she's watching it out of the corner of her eye with the sort of the mouth pursed off to one side and kind of, am I gonna go mess with? Yeah, I'm gonna go mess with this. And kind of yoinks, and then grabs the drink on the way out of it. That's all of those little choices are absolutely so polished and so entertaining that I genuinely forget that that Gibson is at the start of her career. So,
2 outstanding questions I know I have. Is Rogue human? For reals? And then the ring that he gives to the Doctor, the symbol on it, is it of a significance other than just something he had? I know we zoomed in on it, couldn't really tell exactly what it is. But are there clues there? Is it just a thing? Yeah. What do we think?
I wonder if the ring belonged to the former companion.
That'd be really interesting.
And now that the Doctor's wearing it, is somebody going to recognize the ring? So maybe we get a call back to the Rogue without seeing the Rogue again.
Yeah, just Rogue.
Just Rogue.
It looked like a variation of like the Caduceus staff, the traditional Doctor symbol with the snakes and the wings, and like you never got a full on like direct look at it, but it looked like it was a stylized version of that one. But beyond that, I also know.
Thought it was like a bee is rounded with wings, like a bee or a bird. I don't know how that plays into anything, but
I'm sharing with you all right now in the Discord the cleaned up picture that somebody took of it when it is as directly pointed towards the camera as possible. And because I was with you on the Caduceus symbol, and then someone else had suggested maybe it was sort of a combination of that and the original Rogues symbol from D&D, which is the mask with the 2 eyes on the either side of a dagger. But that, because of the asymmetrical side of it, looks like it's a symbol that's kind of been made up for the ring just to be something. It's like a bird with a
looks like
a potion bottle in front of it.
Yeah, like leaves with a swirly bit of rope or a dagger hilt, and looks like a baby head at the top.
We'll share this image in the show notes if you need to take a look at it. If not, then Kier just has to delete this.
Tell us what you think. I need more opinions. You
can join us in Crackpot Corner.
Yes.
And as for do we have a human rogue? Who knows? That is a question for much further down the road if he ever comes back. It's not important unless they decide that it needs to be.
That's true. Well, did he not have some line at some point to the Doctor about, is this one of those, I'm paraphrasing here, is this one of those human culture things? Didn't he have a line to that effect? Something about, is this...
I think it was more of like, what does this cosplay mean to the people here?
It seemed
kind
more
of
time relevant than
TV.
human-centric.
The same thing with not understanding the scandal of the 2 of them dancing together. It seems more that he just doesn't understand exactly what time period he's in and what the social norms are.
Get in the comments.
All in all, I mean, this was a heck of a fun episode. Like, I enjoyed watching this every time I sat down to get through it. It was just a lot of fun.
This is easily my favorite of everything we've had so far. I think it gives you a lot of character development that we're still getting from both of our leads. I think the Doctor gets some romance, which don't get very often. We get hints about it having happened, and weddings and loves and flings, but I don't think we've ever seen the Doctor legit kiss someone on screen. And
Grace Holloway would have something to say about that.
So would Rory Williams, but that's a different story.
But it being like something we saw develop and then allowing it to be, like, it just makes a little bit more love in the world, which is always good.
It has assured me that there are other writers this season than Russell T Davies who want to see Ncuti Gatwa cry at every opportunity. This poor man can't get through one shoot.
If you do it well, that's why they hired you.
Yeah. It's not even in the script. He made a bet with somebody. I bet you I can cry in every single episode.
Right? Yeah.
I'm going to stub my toe getting out of the TARDIS tomorrow.
And from the episode we just had, this one had a lot more diversity, and it had some, queer representation for sure. So those are kinds of things that I know some people don't like, but obviously here in this realm, like, this is what we champion and want to see more of so that we can talk with your kids and your people in your life that it's like, this is the media we want.
Yeah. If you want to get a really fascinating insight on this, go seek out our friend Amanda Ray Prescott, who got an opportunity to interview Shooty and had to sit on an embargo for I don't know how long after seeing this episode, and was waiting to explode because she is, as far as persons of color in historical representation, cinema and television, that is her jam. She is immensely talented at being able to break all that down, and has some fascinating stuff to say about this particular story, as well as queer representation, as well as on-screen kisses, and. So just, this was, I think, written for her. Enjoy.
As Doctor Who begins to fill the public knowledge, as we're wrapping up this season, we want to get more conversation going. And one of the easiest ways for us to do that is if you can take a minute and give us a review on whatever podcast app that you use to download this. It just takes a couple minutes, and it is huge for growing the community that we've got here. And the more people we get, the more conversations we can have, and the better this thing gets. So please, if you've got a minute, just go leave a review and let us know. This has been episode 524 of Gallifrey Public Radio. Until next time, this is Jay saying, roll for outro.
And this is Kier saying, time shed, : now that's a ship.
This is Julie saying, as GPR, we have to keep going because they can't.
And this is Haley saying, happy Pride.
We'll see you next time.
I'll see.
Tag, you're it.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Gallifrey Public Radio. As a fan-run podcast, your thoughts and opinions are part of the conversation. Leave us a comment or review on your preferred podcast app, find us on social media to message us, or visit GallifreyPublicRadio.com for email and voicemail contacts. We'll see you out there in time and space.
Hi, this is Jacob. This recording of Gallifrey Public Radio is copyrighted in 2024. GPR is a fan-owned, fan-produced podcast. We'll see you next time!